Hello, everyone, and welcome to a recap of a Wattpad Studios movie, of course, called Perfect Addiction. I had the privilege to watch this movie, to say the least. I knew I immediately had to talk about it because I need to get my thoughts out. Also, the setup is really janky today. This TV is sitting on top of a cardboard box that is right next to me, so I might, crash out and literally give up from how messy this is. From looking at this poster, you might think that it's a threesome movie. You wouldn't be that far off, funny enough. This will include a plot recap and then a little section where I have my complaints, have my problems about the movie. But first, to introduce our characters. Here in the middle, we have our main character, Sienna, who is a trainer at a boxing gym with her boyfriend, Jax, who is a star fighter. And then they're living their best life as a little power couple. She trains him because she's like the best trainer. He's the best fighter. They are the it couple of the fighting world. She is going grocery shopping one day. She comes back to their apartment, finds him cheating on her with her sister. I don't really like her sister, just putting that out there. That's literally your sister's boyfriend. I'd like to point out that she's heavily being manipulated as well because he is like 24 or something like that. She's a fresh 18. Also, down here is the owner of the gym that she trains at. He'll come in later for the plot and he won't be brought up for half the movie. So just know that he's the owner and he talks to her sometimes. And because of this whole fiasco, obviously she is not living in the same apartment as Jax anymore. And so she is homeless and she's also going back to community college and she's broke. And this is because the gym is going under now because Jax is not fighting there anymore and he is just going off by himself because he doesn't want to work in the same place as her now. And then her going back to community college, she has a friend in college named Brent. That sounds right in my head. It might not be right. I did not write down his name. Brent says that he has a friend who's renting out a room. So she has an option for housing. And then she goes to check it out. She meets this guy. His name is Caden. He says immediately no. He sees that she's a girl and goes, no. And he's played by Ross Butler, aka from Riverdale fame or from Casey Undercover fame, how I know him. And he's an absolute hottie. And then she's really annoyed because he said no to her living there and she's still homeless, which there's something called the underground or something. It's something stupid like that. And that's where people fight illegally for money. And she sees a poster for a fight between Caden and Jax. So she's like, okay, I'm interested because she didn't know that Caden fought. She goes to this fight. Also, along with them being boxers, I found these really stupid posters for each of the main characters and I find them really funny. So I'll insert them here. No one ends up winning their illegal fight because the police show up and so they get out of there real quick. And then Jax says they deserve a rematch because he wants to beat Caden. And then Sienna goes up to Caden and is like, hey, I'll train you in return for me living with you in order for you to beat Jax. And he's like, okay, I don't give a fuck. You're just a random girl. And she's like, I'm actually the best trainer and I trained Jax and I taught him everything he knows. He's like, okay, I'll think about it. And then basically she follows him around so much that he just agrees because she's annoying him for real. And then this is where the movie coasts for a while. This movie is almost 2 hours, I'd like to point out. It did not need that runtime because we go through a bunch of montages of Sienna training Caden and they fall in love through this. Of course they do because it's a Wattpad freaking movie. Obviously they're living together at the time and so she is falling in love with him more because they eat meals together and all that jazz. And then basically Caden is now training at the gym that she's obviously a trainer at. So her boss tells her to not date another one of her fighters again because it went really badly. If this camera falls again, someone's gonna get hurt. And she does not listen to this at all. And she dates him anyway, of course, because she's fucking stupid. They end up having sex. This is important for later. It just happens. Just know that. They trained for the rematch, of course, because Jax needs that rematch, and they also do it illegally again, I'd like to point out. And the rematch is scheduled for the day after Brent's wedding. He's also gay. Shout out to him. We have our token gay representation here. We love that. So they are going as a little couple. Cute. Her friend knows her sister, and so her sister is invited to the wedding, but Sienna's kind of on the outs with her because, she's still dating Jax, even though, that was her boyfriend, because her sister's a dumbass, literally. And also, Sienna is going down the road of realizing that Jax was a manipulator and using her in the relationship. So she's trying to help her sister out of that because he's going to do the same shit to her. But she's also less inclined to help her just because of the fucked up thing she did, which is so fair. I also like to point out that her character is very annoying. I would not even try to help this girl. So because she was invited to the wedding, she brings Jax as her date, which is very problematic because they have a rematch the next day. They're constantly feuding. And so after the ceremony, they're at the reception, having a little argument, but it breaks out into a whole ass fight. And then Jax ends up breaking Caden's rib with a chair. She's just standing here. She's like, oh no, what happened? Girl, it's because you brought your fuck-ass boyfriend to the wedding. And I'd like to point out that Jax then punches one of the grooms. So he literally punches a gay guy on his wedding day. I think he hates gay people. And I don't think that's much of a stretch. Because of the whole encounter of, like him getting his rib broken, him and Sienna go to another room, which happens to be the kitchen. So there's like constantly cooks running past them because like they're doing their jobs and they're just like intruding on the space right there. But they're having a whole ass argument because a little bit ago in the women's bathroom, I like to point out, both Jax and Caden went in there. Jax went in first and then Caden went in there to see how Sienna was. Basically, like they both went into the women's bathroom. For one, that's crazy. And then Jax ended up saying, well, you're not telling her everything, are you? Like, what about your mother? And that's why Caden got really, really mad and started fighting him. So Sienna was like, oh, like what's going on with your mom? He was like, oh, like it's not your business, I shouldn't have to tell you. And she's like, okay, so we're kind of dating. But I also think she was being very pushy about this because he didn't have to tell her anything. And she was like, you have to tell me about your mom. And he's like, no, the fuck I don't. Like, that's not your problem, I'm afraid. And it happened a long time ago. And basically the reason he says that like he killed his mom or something like that, and I think it's like he's saying like because of him his mom died. He didn't physically kill his mom. That'd be kind of a crazy plot twist. She's like, okay, like that's fine or whatever. And he's like, no, like you're fucking pissing me off. And so they break up, which is so real actually, because she was being annoying. And then because of this, she also says that she's not going to fight tomorrow, and he decides to fight with a broken rib. I like to point out, he does not go to the hospital. He decides to fight with a broken rib because he's like stupid. I don't know. And then she's at the gym the next day, and then her boss convinces her to go to the fight anyway. So she shows up super late and then starts coaching Caden while he's fighting. And so he gets really happy that she's there, and then ends up actually cooking the fight. And then he like almost, I think he knocks out Jax completely. And then she's so excited because he won the freaking fight. So she goes in the ring, okay? And they like hug and kiss or whatever. And they're back together. They're serving like the it couple. They are the it couple now. And then Jax gets up and in a haze because he, got knocked the fuck out. So he wants to punch Caden, but he misses. Or Sienna jumps in front of him. I don't remember. But I think he misses and then punches Sienna straight in the head. So she gets knocked the fuck out immediately. And then it's revealed that she is unconscious in the hospital during this 3-day period. Caden takes this as a perfect out of the relationship and moves to Philly. He also leaves a letter that says he didn't want to like hold her back or some shit like that, but she reads it when she wakes up after 3 days being unconscious. And she moves on with her life. She is now training to be a fighter with her boss in the gym, which is fun because she's actually a very good fighter, but Jax basically convinced her that she was never going to be good enough. And so she never pursued it. But of course he's, a raging asshole. And then when she's training one day in the gym, Caden comes back and they get back together. I don't know how much of a time skip this is actually. I would guess like a month or so, probably. And then he also decides to go back to school and not do illegal fighting anymore. He's going to do fighting through the gym specifically because she was also being very like judgmental and weird about him doing illegal fighting in specifics. Like I get it's illegal, at the same time, like that's not your business. Also, my personal headcanon is that he's going to culinary school. They do not say this, but I think he is because he cooked like halfway throughout the movie and he was really good at it. And she was like, oh my God, you're like such a good cook. And he was like, yeah, I really enjoy cooking. So I think he's going to culinary school. I wish the best for Ross Butler in every case scenario. Okay, now to get to my problems with the movie. Absolutely, I just hate these things about the movie. At the same time, I did rate this, I think 2 or 3 stars on Letterboxd. Speaking of that, you should go check out my Letterboxd. It'll be linked in the description. First and foremost, and near the end of the movie, she ends up forgiving her sister because her sister ended up breaking up with Jax and everything. I don't think she should have forgave her sister this fast. I think she should have waited it out because her sister literally ruined her life. I'd like to point out, like, by cheating with her boyfriend, she literally made her homeless and without a job. So I would not forgive her that easy. Second, I have the fact that throughout the movie, Jax would call Sienna princess every time that he saw her, when literally he was currently dating her sister. And I think that's just weird in general. I don't like the nickname in general. And he's just a little weirdo and I kind of hate him. When Sienna was falling in love with Caden, there was a scene where she was showering and then she thought of a threesome between her, Caden, and Jax. And I didn't like that. And I know the poster kind of gave me that impression already. I just didn't like that. Sorry, my camera keeps slipping. Literally every time I try and talk, I think they're trying to silence me. And then this is when it's important when I mentioned that they had sex, because this sex scene was possibly the worst thing I've ever watched in my life. I've watched a few sex scenes in my life, but this was possibly the most uncomfortable I've ever felt during one. Like, I was like genuinely cringing the entire time. It was awful. And I'd like to say that I watched this movie with 2 other people. We were all just staring at the TV. We were like, and they chose to put the scene over Phoebe Bridgers, which is definitely a choice. I feel like that's not really the vibe that was going. It was very like, we've been having sexual attention for a while, so we're gonna have sex right now. So I feel like they would, do like, I don't know how else to describe it, like sexy music, if that makes sense. That was not the right choice. I guess like budget, shout out to Phoebe Bridgers, but no, that was definitely not the right music choice. A problem that I had was that along with them having sex, basically they were like eye fucking every single where they went after this, because they were like training on a dock. They were like doing like cardio or some shit. I don't know. But they were doing like sit-ups next to each other. And then they were like practically having sex on this public dock. And I was like, okay, let's calm it down. They were like making out and like the whole shebang on this public dock. And I was like, okay, calm it down. I don't need to see this. I said this while explaining the plot, but this movie is very slow, as in it's almost 2 hours and does not need to be. So a lot of it drags. for an extended period amount of time where you're just sitting here like, why is the scene still going on? Like, we see so many scenes of her just seeing Jax, and then she's like, oh, I hate that guy. I want to beat him so bad. We get it, girl. That's about your only character development so far in this movie. And I also have a problem with the fact that Sienna gets like no character development except for the fact that she like realizes that Jax was a manipulative asshole, which like is good for her. At the same time, like I feel like they could have done more with her. Also, Caden was kind of like a blank slate. He just like was a guy who was kind of traumatized because his mom died, which is like fair to be traumatized about, but he really didn't have anything else. He was very boring, to say the least. It's fine for me because I was looking at Ross Butler the entire time, so I was like, oh, I would see why she would date him. I also was really annoyed on how she coached Caden because she's very annoying when she coaches. I don't know why. I honestly think this is like maybe a thing with the actress. I don't know. I don't think it was her fault. I think it's the script she was given because I absolutely hated every single moment where she was coaching because she just sounded so annoying. And then this one isn't really a problem. I just thought it was funny. During fight scenes, they have like slow-mo shots of like Jax when he's like getting ready to fight because he's like the champion or whatever. And he like does like a whole thing where he like flexes and then he like screams. And it's like very weird and like it's not that serious, bro. Like it's crazy. I just think it's funny because he kind of looks like a monkey when he does it because he's like shaved head. He doesn't have like big ears, but he has like bigger ears. And so he looks like a monkey every time he does it. And I laugh. And finally, I have a problem with the fact that she forgave Jax in the end of the movie and didn't file for a fucking lawsuit for getting knocked out and being unconscious in the hospital for 3 days. I'm afraid he probably gave you severe brain damage. Why aren't you actually suing this man for assault? Because he literally punched you upside the head. Number one enemy for real right here. And those are all my thoughts on this wonderful movie. I would recommend watching this 100%, even though I said that it's boring as shit. But like, I feel like me explaining it doesn't really give you the full experience of having to watch that shit because like, it was an experience for sure. As I said, I reviewed this on Letterboxd, and I also review a lot of other fuck-ass Wattpad movies on my Letterboxd, so check it out. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see my videos in the future. My next video is going to be a recap of Henry Danger and all the content surrounding it, so I'm very excited to make that, and it will be like so much of my time that I really hope that you go watch it because it's going to take me forever and I already know it. Thanks for watching.